Hey folks, how you going? Happy Australia Day if you're in Australia. Today we are looking at the third ArmSoM product that I had. This is the ArmSoM P2pro that they sent me. Now this one similarly is made in collaboration with Banana Pi. So this is the Banana Pi BPI P2. This comes in two different variants. There is the P2 Basic and then the P2 Pro, which makes no sense really because it's called the P2 Pro. This is the basic one. The only difference is this has no PoE module and it doesn't have the 8 gig eMMC. So what that means is that we need to power it ourselves with the USB Type-C, and we're going to have to get an SD card and flash it. So without further ado, let's jump over to the computer, have a look at the specs of this, grab an image and try it out. After that, we'll work out what sort of SBC or board this is and we'll stick it on the tier list. Alrighty, so over here you can see that it's powered by a quad-core 64-bit A35, so it's the RK3308B-S. What that means for us is 64-bit, it's not 32-bit. There's been a lot of 32-bit code being removed from Linux. There's a lot of talk about 32-bit just not being looked after anymore, but a lot of the low-powered, cheap, especially this price range SBCs and similar that you get, are only 32-bit. So this is 64-bit on the Rockchip platform, which means that we're going to get some of the nice Rockchip features that we're used to. Not to say that the others from Amlogic and similar are bad, but we're very familiar with Rockchip, of course. So it's also got USB, Ethernet, Bluetooth, wireless, and a pile of interfaces. What they mean here is eMMC, not RAM. That's the wrong word there. As we can see, it's pretty close to that cracker form factor that we're used to. And if we jump down to the documentation, you'll see on here there are two software images that they have shared. And then if you go over to the Banana Pi site, there is a further build root image. So what we're going to do is download the Debian 11 image, stick that on an SD card, and try it out. Now, one thing I do want to point out with this, as awesome as this processor is, and as awesome as this product is, their pinout's different. So their 40-pin header is not the same as the Pi 2 header. You can see they've got the voltages in pretty much the same place, but then this is completely different. So you've got to pay attention to that. It's also got that little 12-pin on the side that we'll see. And again, this is different. So if we go back to it and have a look, you can see here, let's get up nice and close. We've got that 40-pin, the 12-pin header, the 40-pin header, RAM, processor. Now that's 16-bit RAM from memory, by the way. It's 512 meg, which is awesome, but only 16-bit, which may be a limiting factor for some. We've then got our Wi-Fi module here. We've got an UFL antenna connector there, and I'll mention that in a minute. We have an RGB LED there, which is pretty cool. Our audio jack, reset, recovery buttons. Then over here, we have a USB 2.0 host port, 10100 Ethernet, and our USB Type-C on the go and power port, or at least I believe it's on the go and power. Underneath, as I mentioned before, we've just got our SD card slot and the blank eMMC spot. So pretty compact, nearly that cracker form factor, but not quite. What I'm going to do now is flash an SD card with the Debian 11 image, because that's what I prefer to try out. Then we'll boot this up, see what the user interface is like. It's going to be command line because it's headless, obviously. And then we'll check a few things like its power rating. I might see if we can benchmark it, and we'll go from there. Alrighty, here we go. SD card, in it goes. And first, let's test out the power consumption. Because to see what it's doing when it boots, we'd have to set up UART, and I really cannot actually be bothered with that. We'll try out ADB and see what that does shortly, but first, let's get some USB in and USB out, and use our little awesome FMB58 to see how this thing goes. There we go. So it's really not drawing much. Wow. $50 milliamps. And you can't actually see it there, but it's got a nice little LED glow going on. It's quite purple with a flash of green, red. Drew over 250 milliamps. So it's obviously booting, doing something. It might be doing the first boot process. It might expand the root partition, something like that. It's obviously quite busy there though. After we've let it go through this boot process, I'm going to grab a USB Type-C cable and we'll connect directly to it. Try to use ADB. I'm going to assume that works because it's based on the Rockchip SDK, and then we can have a look at what comes with, what it does, what it might be useful for, and slap it on that tier list. All right, it seems booted and stable now, and it's drawing between probably about 50 and 100 milliamps, which I personally find really impressive. That is extremely, extremely low power. So next, I'm going to plug directly into it with my awesome purple USB Type-C, and we'll jump on the computer and have a look at what's going on the insides. Before I go any further, I do just want to point out that this video is kindly sponsored by PCBWay. They still have contests going. There's a link below for $5 off your first order, which if you're building prototypes means you just pay for shipping. They are awesome, long-time sponsor of this channel that not only do 3D printing and PCBs, they also do CNC machining and injection molding and metal sheet fabrication. The really cool part about both the CNC machining actually and the 3D printing is the amount of materials that you can pick from. No one else has this many materials. You can also, of course, check out their module store if you want to buy some tools and all sorts of pre-built stuff, and shared projects to see things that me and other makers have shared on PCBWay for you to enjoy. Now, back to the video. So this thing should be booted, whoop, wrong button. Should be booted up now. It's looking all good. So let's maximize this. And we're just going to try ADB shell. Look at that, straight in. All right, free minus M, so 512 meg of RAM, no swap space there. If we're going to benchmark it, we'll need some swap space. We used a 32 gig SD card, I think it was. It doesn't look like it's automatically expanded though. Then if we have a look at our CPU cores, we have our 3 A35 cores there. So they're a nice entry-level 64-bit core that's very, very power efficient. D message, there's no specific concerns there. Now, one of the things that I did note is that this didn't actually come with an antenna. Now, when you are buying an antenna, I do have both types in stock, but there are two different sizes of this UFL connector. So I'll see if I can get a bit of a closer shot there. There you go. As you can see, there is a bigger and a smaller one, and I make note of this in my product listings on the shop as well. So, pardon me, being very careful because these things are very fragile, and you probably shouldn't actually do it whilst it's running. I'm just gonna plug this antenna connector in. Definitely shouldn't do it while it's running, by the way. This is a quick way to destroy your Wi-Fi module. But I've learned the hard way before. I'm probably going to learn the hard way again. And for now, I got that on there. So if we go back to the desktop, we should be able to have a look at a default WPA supplicant file. Ooh, we've got some scripts in here written up. All right, we won't worry about that for now. It's in the documentation and you've seen how to do it before. We have, what do we got in here? CD mount, no external SD, no SD card, no USB storage, no UDISC. So there's probably startup scripts. They're going to automatically mount things if they're there. Now this has no MIPI CSI or DSI connection, so that is a little bit odd, but you know, there's pretty much always reasons for that. We do have the Rockchip test folder as usual, so we can see there is a few things here that we can test out. Now, of course, not all of them are going to work and not all of them are relevant to this processor, but most of them should. So if we go NPU stress test, and there we go. That's going to be doing its stress test, which is going to be hammering the little NPU on this poor little SoC. So temperature-wise, God, that is ambient. I can't even feel that generating any heat. It's cool. So I'll stop that for now. We don't really need it. And we don't really have anything else here. So, or nothing interesting looking. Let's just quickly check OEM. No. So first things first, let's quickly allocate. Oh, we're gonna have to expand that partition before we can do anything else. I'll be back in a tick. All right, so jumping back in, I had a look, and this is actually the last partition on the disk, and in parthead it was 29 gig or so. So I went to resize it, but it was mounted, so I unmounted it, went to resize it. It's still mounted there, which is really weird. Unmounted, unmounted again, it's definitely unmounted. Resized it, so now we should just be able to go mount user data, and now we have all of our space. So I want to create a nice allocate swap file, derp, all right, user data swap file. Oh, what? What is going on there? That's read write, that's got plenty of space. Operation not supported. ddifdev 0 of equals user data swap file, BS equals 100 meg, yeah, count equals 21 for good measure. That will do it in the background, and we can just get rid of this file that we created there that filled it a bit more than we needed. That is going to be hammering the IO now. The reason I'm doing this though is I want to have a look at what Geekbench does on this little process. I have nothing in my repo of it yet. So whilst we wait for that to happen, I thought I'd also mention that I do have my Patreon. If you want to support this channel, it would be hugely appreciated. The membership options start from as little as $4 Australian or $3 US, and everything has different perks. No one really talks much. It's just mostly supporting me at the moment, but I want to build a community. And of course, I'll help you out with your own SBC troubles as well. Now there's the SBC tier list, which is slowly growing, and we're going to rank this board at the end of this as well. There is the board taxonomies, which we're going to look into. In fact, let's go through this now. Essentially, you've got an SBC you're all familiar with, but what I think this actually fits more in the category of is an embedded single board computer. So it's running a full Linux, but it's got no display output. So it's an embedded device meant for headless operation. So this is an eSBC, and you'll see if we jump over here, we have a few of those already ranked on the tier list. This will be another one to add to it. Now, lastly, in case you were not aware, I do actually have a shop for all this SBC stuff. Now, I'm probably going to rebrand this soon. I think it's about time for me to start getting rid of this Platima branding. I'm Australian. That was a keyboard mashing 23 years ago when Gmail first came out. And I think something more can be done with this. I'd love your feedback below on what I should rebrand as rather than Platima Tinkers. Any input would be awesome. So now, back over to this. That file's deleted, our 2 gigs done, so we'll go cho 600 user data swap file. Let's actually just go into that folder. Make swap file. Such a habit of putting that / there, and then we'll go swap on swap file. Whoa. But what do you mean function not implemented? And why is it not function not implemented? Why is there no swap? I'm so confused. It's Debian 11 with some weird build info there. What I think I'm going to do is actually jump back over here and grab their instructions for the Wi-Fi. So I've already done that bit. I'll copy and paste this bit because it's worth doing an apt update and apt upgrade and see if that fixes a swap issue, and then we can run the benchmark. Otherwise, we'll come up with some other benchmark to do. So I'm just going to quickly paste this in here because the command line seems to have some issues. This is, of course, my highly secure Pi-Fi, which, of course, is aptly named for exactly this purpose. In fact, I'll just go bash. Set up that should join the Wi-Fi now. It's looking pretty good. It even got an IP address automatically. That's what I want to see. So let's see what happens if we do this. We might get something out of it. If we get any kernel updates, I'm going to give it a reboot. We'll try and set up that swap space again. Otherwise, I will try some PDF and GhostScript sort of benchmarks because I've got some data to compare that to. I'll be back soon. Well, that's all finished and it's rebooted, but we still have no swap. So I can only assume that config swap wasn't enabled in the build. and I've got no idea why. So what I'm going to do now is install cups, and I'll probably install, have a quick tinker, and then I'll come back to you with a quick benchmark to compare it to two other boards that both have RK3308s, just to put them side by side. And yep, that is using a Chinese mirror by default there too, but at least it's nice and fast. So I'll get this installed, I'll come back to you in a tick. So this is the last test, and then we're going to put it on the SBC tier list. So the first one, if we go have a look at test one, is just using GhostScript to do a batch PDF write to dev null. So, and it times it, of course. So if we run test one, processes the page, and that is 1.32 seconds. So let's run it a few times. 1.34. 1.31. So I'm going to stick with that 1.32, which is really not great. That's slower than the Orange Pi equivalent and the Radshare Rock S. The second one to look at is test 2. So what that's doing here is PDF to PDF, the default PDF file, and dumping it to dev null. So that is 0.072 seconds, which is actually really good. So the Orange Pi, I can't remember which model, got 0.159. That was 0.159. And the Rock S got 0.294. So it's faster at the PDF to PDF, it appears, but slower at the GhostScript. And I'm not entirely sure why or how, but that is what we have for now. So getting back to the product itself, what we are going to have to do is work out where on the tier list this fits. And I've got a lot of mixed feelings. So it's very cost effective, it's very low power, it's got a PoE option, comes with Debian, Buildroot, and OpenWRT builds, but no Ambien. So it could be really good for Pi-hole or Docker as far as that PoE goes. Has got Wi-Fi and Bluetooth, which is pretty handy, and a pile of GPIOs. Now what's really interesting is there is 8 microphone inputs on this. So it could be something really good as far as sensors and audio. I'd love your feedback on how 8 microphones could be used with an SBC. Now, having a look at the documentation, I did actually find back in here that there isn't an NPU. So the RK3308 doesn't have any NPU. So rule out what I said at the start there. That's really, really good to know. That's probably why it's so low power. But with no NPU, it does take some of the options off the table. That being said, why would it need an NPU if it's got no camera interface? Now, there's definitely a lot of good here, of course. There's a lot of bad in my mind too. So it doesn't look like a completely standard PoE interface that I could see there. It didn't, like I had an existing Banana Pi PoE module that didn't fit. It didn't come with an antenna. The Debian image is weird. So no swap config. It's got Chinese repositories and name servers pre-configured, and the partition didn't auto expand. So the image is a little bit broken. I'm not sure why, but I will let them know and hopefully they'll cut a new one. It's also only got the 16-bit DDR. That's a limitation of the SoC though, not their specific build. Non-standard headers can be dangerous. If you try to put a hat on this, it might not work. So I don't like that either. And then of course, it is a bit of a different shape. Now I can see how that shape is possibly necessary. I would personally recommend going to the credit card form factor for this if you're going to go for this slightly bigger variant. I do like the RGB LED. So as far as price and availability goes, it's available from AliExpress or directly from their shop. And the price is really good. So I'm going to give it 4 stars for that one, 4 out of 5. Features and specs. So it's an odd form factor. The CPU is great, but the RAM is slow. Wi-Fi is really good, GPIO is really weird, no RTC battery, no MIPI CSI or DSI, and the PoE interface is there, but it's an odd interface. So I'm going to give that a 3. Documentation support, pretty straightforward. There's not too much there, but what's there is good. That I'll give a 4. Performance and reliability. So this is where it falls over. The Wi-Fi was really easy to use, but it didn't come with an antenna for it, which might leave some people a little bit struggling out of the box. The PoE module is kind of non-standard, and the lack of swap space, not even the option to create swap. Now that is a huge failing. So performance and reliability, I'm going to give it a 2. Some of that is fixable with the new image, some isn't. And then lastly, accessories and compatibility. So USB Type-C power is excellent. PoE option is excellent. You've got your one storage option or two storage options, depending on what model you buy. It doesn't support most hats, doesn't seem to have any cases, and there's only one or two third-party images for this. There's no ARM bin. So I'm probably going to have to give it a 2, just for the using a 40-pin header interface, but not using the standard connections, as opposed to putting them on something separate. And yeah, just there's a fair few things failing here. So $16, it's still extremely good. It's also extremely capable. 64-bit quad-core SoC that puts out no heat. So this is a great embedded device. It's just not great for a lot of the applications that you'd typically use it for. If you've got an application that you think it would be useful for, so possibly taking advantage of the RGB LED, the 8 microphone interfaces, and the power over Ethernet, maybe even the Wi-Fi, but Wi-Fi and PoE is also quite strange. You don't see that combination normally. So yeah, I'd love to know. Let me know below. Thank you again to PCBWay for sponsoring this video. Long-time champs, link below for $5 off your first order. Thank you to all of my patrons who continue to sponsor this channel. Head over to Patreon and join for free if you'd like, or become a member. You get ad-free videos, early access, chat, support, everything like that. Thank you to ArmSoM for sending these to me. It's greatly appreciated. He makes some really cool products. This one goes into the B tier, unfortunately, but there are opportunities for improvements, especially if you make another one like the P3, or that's what I'm calling it. And thank you to all of you guys for coming by, supporting this channel, all of your feedback below, and everything that's helped me get where I am, because this is still fun to do somehow. I hope you're doing great. Hope you're having a great long weekend if you're in Australia. If not, I hope you had a lovely weekend, or I don't even know when I'm going to get this video out. Have a good weekend ahead if it's a Friday. Catch you guys next time.